Taxpayer Bill of Rights refunds will not be taxed this year by the feds. The IRS had thought about it for a while, but decided against it this afternoon.
Colorado's entire congressional delegation sent a letter to the IRS this morning after the agency told taxpayers in 19 states, including here in Colorado, to hold off on filing their taxes. Here's 9 News reporter Luis De Leon.
The $750 Tabor check you got last summer, or
Luis De Leon reporting. A former Clear Creek County inmate is receiving $15,000 after the city and the county and several sheriff's deputies reached an agreement in an excessive force lawsuit. One of the deputies named in the lawsuit is also facing felony charges in another case. This video is back from 2019. Video shows Manuel Camacho in the hallway of the Clear Creek County Jail. Camacho claims in the lawsuit he asked for a bigger restraint to accommodate a swelling leg. Deputy Andrew Buin walks up to Camacho and tackles him. That deputy's name may sound familiar. Buin is currently awaiting trial on second-degree murder charges for shooting and killing Christian Glass last summer. The county and Camacho reached the settlement last November, but it wasn't clear how much Camacho was awarded until today. Buin is expected to be in court for Glass's trial in April.
A court decision in Texas could ultimately determine if women in Colorado can access the abortion pill. Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser wants to keep it available here. He's joining a coalition of 22 attorneys general who argue that pulling mifepristone has devastating consequences for women. An anti-abortion group, including some doctors, have sued the FDA in federal court trying to overturn the FDA's approval of that drug. That drug is used together with a second drug as the most common method to terminate an early pregnancy in the U.S. The attorneys general say making this pill unavailable forces women to undergo more invasive and expensive surgical procedures, which disproportionately affect women in underserved and lower income communities. A separate group of Republican attorneys general argue the FDA's approval of that drug is deeply flawed. The federal judge in Texas gave one of the pill makers and anti-abortion doctors 2 more weeks to answer with their arguments.
Fountain police officer who fell 40 feet from a bridge while chasing a suspect is now on life support. Fountain police say Officer Julian Becerra is surrounded by friends and family. Still don't know exactly how he fell. Happened last week when police were chasing 3 carjacking suspects. As he was running over a bridge, he fell over I-25. Becerra has been with the department for nearly 5 years. He's currently a canine officer. He's also a husband and a father.
I was concerned that, these guys could turn on me or anyone else that was around.
Police in Denver are now looking for 4 men they say beat and robbed a man exiting an RTD train last month. This happened January 31st at the Decatur Federal Light Rail. Surveillance video shows these 4 men exiting the train, and then they walk toward the door, another door of a same car, waiting for the man to exit, and then they start assaulting him. One of the attackers grabs the man's backpack and kicks the victim in the head as he walks away. Brian Stack says he saw it all.
I don't think there's a very good feeling of security around our public transit, as much as it could be and should be in order to be better utilized by our community.
RTD's police chief will update the agency's board on safety improvements next week. A preview of his presentation shows that despite the perception, the crime rate on that transit system is actually down. Police are still looking for the 4 suspects in this attack. RTD says it's now in the process of ramping up security responses.
Proposed bill would let cities and counties call dibs on apartment buildings for sale. They can be turned into affordable housing. Under the bill, if a property owner wants to sell their building, they'd still be able to list it. They'd have to get local governments in on it as well. If a city wants to buy, they have 14 days to show interest, and then the buying process starts. A Democrat sponsoring the bill says it lets local governments be competitive. Critics, on the other hand, say it's completely unfair.
What we hope to do is really just create a handhold for our local governments inside of the transaction to be able to be competitive and to preserve affordable housing.
Cities already have a lot of options just through the normal free market enterprise. So it's just going to hurt our overall real estate market because people are going to be really hesitant to buy properties.
Now, under the bill, sellers would still get to solicit as many offers as they want. City would have to match the highest offer and keep it as affordable housing for 50 years. There were 11 statewide issues on last November's ballot. There was nearly a 12th, a measure that would have forced Excel to dip into its profits as bills soar. The ballot issue made it through the approval process, but it never got the 124,000 signatures needed to appear on the ballot. would have required Excel and Black Hills to use their profits to pay at least 5% of new expenses approved by the Public Utilities Commission. Things like infrastructure projects or higher rates. John Caldera, the libertarian activist behind the measure, says it would have been an indirect way for energy bills to be reduced.
It doesn't mean that your bill immediately or directly goes down. What it means is finally the people who are profiting from building stuff. It's a tiny disincentive for them to say, let's build more stuff, let's build more stuff.
Now, for this to get on the ballot in the future, Caldera would have to go through the exact same process again and collect 124,000 signatures.
A bulk of the snow season still lies ahead, but one city is already talking about restricting its water.
And staying with snow, we could be getting a little bit more on Wednesday, along with some chilly conditions. Details coming up.
And RTD won't have to pay $100 million for a problem that frustrated drivers.
The person accused of shooting and killing 5 people and hurting several others at Club Q in Colorado Springs was actually inside the club earlier that evening before they left and then returned later. That new information came from a hearing in El Paso County this morning. The defense team wants security video with audio included in the preliminary hearing. The defense also wanted the hearing pushed back, saying it will take time to get both the video and the audio. The judge ultimately denied that request and kept the hearing set for February 22nd. After the shooting at Club Q, some drag queens feel even more empowered to continue performing and pushing for change. One local drag queen, Dixie Crystals, says Club Q is a reminder that her safety is always at risk, especially when she performs. Having performed for years, she now does more family-friendly events opposed to the bar scenes. Dixie and other queens are hoping more conversations about LGBTQ safe spaces can happen.
A lot of the places that I work at, quite often, they were able to get things put in place pretty quickly with having security teams on site where they're doing now bag check policies. They're doing pat downs at the door. So for me, I feel more empowered now because I'm not backing down.
Dixie hopes to also use her voice to push for change on the legislative side to help fundraise for venues that can't afford to modify their facilities for the extra security. She also hopes to empower other drag queens to continue performing.
Repairs are complete at one of Suncor's 3 plants. The plant will reopen sometime next week. Even though Suncor has been shut down since December, people in Commerce City are still dealing with bad air quality. Cultivando, a nonprofit, has been monitoring the air around the refinery for about a year. An atmospheric scientist who works with the group says even though the plant has been closed for nearly 2 months, air pollutant levels haven't dropped dramatically.
We've seen that, levels have actually been quite high compared to last year, but that's to a large extent driven by the strong inversions we've had.
Now, those inversions cause cold air to get trapped near the ground. Suncor says it's continuously monitoring the air quality around the refinery and just installed a fence line monitoring system last month.
Aurora's water department is warning reservoirs they're getting pretty low, and the city needs to discuss implementing some springtime drought restrictions earlier than they normally would. Aurora's water supply has been decreasing steadily over the past couple months, according to Aurora Water. The department told City Council Aurora's reservoirs are now at 54% capacity. They expect that to dip to 48% by mid-April. They say that is not clear why water demand has been so high, but they note that the West is still in the midst of a mega drought. Aurora Water is now asking City Council to pass a resolution implementing Stage 1 water restrictions starting May 1st. Under those restrictions, the city limits watering to 2 days a week.
This week, 5 historic buildings were put on Colorado's most endangered places list. Nonprofit Colorado Preservation Incorporated says the goal is to preserve the buildings' histories while finding a way to repurpose them to meet current needs.
And that's really what the goal of our most endangered places list is. Yes, the building is historic, or a resource is historic, but we are finding ways to incorporate that into today's society.
Now, this isn't their first time doing this kind of thing. CPI previously helped save the R&R Market in the small town of San Luis in southern Colorado. It's now a grocery store for the community. CPI also wants to preserve stories often left out of the history books.
The feminilas were pretty much the backbone of these small communities' society. I mean, Hispanic women have really taken the back burner in, mainstream history. And so what CPI and the Endangered Places program is attempting to do is to bring that history to the forefront.
Now, since the program began 24 years ago, they've saved 55 buildings. RTD learned today it will not have to pay more than $100 million, ending a long legal fight over its malfunctioning crossing gates. It's been more than 2 years since the trial ended. Perhaps you'd forgotten about those gates that came down and stayed down. Bet this driver remembers.
The crossing guard's like, what the
Come on, you piece of
That's what we call colorful language. Back in 2016, we played that video on Next at least once a week. Tammy was her name. Her daughter recorded that reaction stuck behind yet another busted gate. They'd come down too early or too late, leaving drivers pretty much no option but to use that colorful language. Eventually, crossing guards were put out there for safety. A Denver District Court judge ruled today in their lawsuit that was filed in 2018. Denver Transit Partners, the contractors that built the A, B, and G lines, sued RTD back then, saying the gate issues caused expensive delays and problems. The judge essentially said, yeah, Denver Transit Partners was in charge of building those, and it's their fault. For what it's worth, RTD isn't getting any money either. They countersued for $27 million. Beep. Beep, 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 beep. No money coming in, but we still have that priceless reaction.
Yes.
And I love that Tammy's daughter there was just recording her mom.
I mean, how could you not, right?
He knew she had gold.
It seems like a very long soliloquy that she was going through, right?
Tammy is all of us stuck behind one of those gates. We are all Tammy.
We are all Tammy. Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's take one last look at the forecast for us as we are in for overall a pretty nice night, but today was picture perfect. High temperatures, no totals just yet, but it is going to be potentially rather large.
Greg, you got beautiful weather. Beautiful weather, and then we got Wednesday snow. But of course, you set up the beautiful weather on the day where everybody comes inside, sits down in front of the TV, and watches the Super Bowl.
Well, maybe just bring the TV outside.
That's an option.
Right? Bring the TV outside, or maybe, get a little tent going. You can have it on the patio, on the deck.
I think what we got planned here is a little hike in the morning, a little run maybe, a little walk with the dogs, and then
get that exercise in, heart
exactly.
rate up, and then
take
you
advantage. Take advantage of that beautiful weather on Super Bowl Sunday before you plant yourself in front of that TV.
Burn all the calories, consume all the calories.
And then you just break even. You're good. Yeah.
That's the perfect Super Bowl forecast.
I think that's how doctors would say it works too.
100%. Yeah, 100% of the time.
You could have just left Wednesday out of it, though.
Maybe next time we'll just take that out. It's just not going to be a Wednesday forecast.
Thanks for spending some time with us. Have a good rest of your evening.